Hello, Mama Bear listeners. Welcome back to the podcast.
We're together.
We're so happy to be back in person.
Oh, Mama Bear, I'm here to stay. With wisdom and warmth, let's light the way. Together we'll laugh, together we'll share. In this cozy space, it's love and care.
I know that I prefer listening to podcasts when they are in studio. So
Yeah, the virtual's not it. It was so good to be able to catch up and keep some content coming out. But now that we're together again, we are so excited about our very first interview today.
and we're happy to, be able to be hanging out again. So
Yeah, that's the whole reason behind this podcast.
Right.
So.
It's a reason to get us together. And, we chat a lot. So we thought that you'd want to hear it too. Anyways, we're happy to be back, and we have a really exciting episode today because we have our very first guest.
I loved it.
Yep.
I loved interviewing. I know it was just my husband, but I've actually not heard his story to that level of detail before.
Well, right. When you hear it, because you've kind of lived it. So when you hear it from start to finish, it's a bit different.
And I can't lie, during the
once.
time of this whole thing that went on with him, I was super pregnant and kind of annoyed by the journey.
And focused on your own journey, right?
I was like, give it a break.
Right. So anyways, we have a great interview with Erryn, and we're excited for you to hear that. But before we get into that, we just wanted to do a little update on where we are and what's going on with our lives. So you just got back from Florida?
Yes, I'm back in the snowiness of Canada, and I'm bracing the cold, like baby walking with Everest and bundled up in coats. So that's been such a transition because we were so loving our stroller walks and tank tops and shorts. So that's been a transition just like as a new mom. I mean, not because I can't deal with the cold. I've lived here my whole life, but I mean, like now learning like hats and mitts and how to keep him warm in the baby carrier and not being able to just walk outside with him.
So funny that you say because you've lived here your whole life, because Emerson is just all the time. It's so cold. And I'm just like, honey, get used to it because we live in Canada and this is our lives. We're not moving anytime soon. So.
But it is sad. It's so sad because with the kids, it's sometimes daunting to stay inside all day.
Oh, it's very long days. And like when it's days that are like sunny and snowy, they're lovely. You can go outside. Right. But days like today, it's very frigid. So even the schools typically will keep the kids in if it's too cold.
Yeah, so that's what I'm struggling with a little bit. Is just like taking up time in that wake window. Like he's up for 2.5 hours, and I'm like that 30-minute walk, during each of his wake windows really kept me like rejuvenated or some time to myself. And
I'm clawing, waiting for spring. Wait. I'm very, very excited. I do try to enjoy every season as it is, but I just find winter a little bit too long.
It's a little too long. Even though I just got back here, it's still too long.
Yeah, right.
The only other thing for me is we ended up flying home instead of going to Virginia. I noticed that
you flew instead of driving.
Yeah, so my girlfriend in Virginia, I did mention last time, she has 4 under 4. The 4 got sick. It was terribly sad. And her husband was out of town for a week, and her baby's only 8 weeks old. It's so sad. And I'm desperate to get down there and visit her. But with her family getting sick, and it's just a bit too much travel to begin with Everest and driving. So we last minute booked a flight home, and he did so good on the flight. I actually got given like the flight attendants gave me a whole row to myself so I could play with Everest. That was really, really good. And we breastfed on takeoff and landing.
And any blowouts?
Double blowed again, but I was ready. I had prepared. 3 outfits. So it happened again. And on the way down, I actually didn't time the feeding the best. So he did have some pain. I actually had some built up gas. And as soon as he let a little burp out, he was fine. So
something about the pressure drop must just
release
much. His bowels. The pressure drop and the feeding together, it's just...
Yeah. And other than that, he's... brand new out of his swaddle, kind of a little bit of a sensitive topic with us. We can talk about a little bit more next episode. But that's been like a big move for us. Okay. So yeah, how about you guys?
Honestly, not a lot big happening over here.
Yeah. The winter blues.
The winter blues, and we're just keeping in routine.
You know what you do need to update on us is the missing Stuffy. What happened?
Oh my goodness. The missing Stuffy has been found. She came home with it that day, and the best part is she just acted like nothing had happened.
Oh no. And you had been stressed all day about it.
Yes. She acted like nothing had happened. I'm like, Winnie the Pooh's in your bag. And she's like, yeah.
So was that the first thing you looked for when she walked?
Oh yeah. I'm like, no, like I picked her up from school and I'm like, where is Winnie? And I look in her bag. She's like, it's in the bag.
Did she not tell you that someone had delivered?
No.
Oh. Did you eventually ask her? Or you just let it go?
I said, did someone bring it to your class? She said, yeah. I said, you didn't notice he was like, you were like, why is Winnie showing up in class? And she's like, no.
Oh
all right.
Isn't that like just a testament to like we overthink
everything
more than our children really realize?
Everything. And I've noticed that a lot lately, that like when you're a kid, everything is just very black and white. Like, especially like with, you know, the way we view other people and stuff. Like, I don't know, like I can tell Emerson, you know, she's asked, this is like controversial, but asked about, you know, does everyone have a mommy and a daddy? And I say, nope. Some people have two mommies, some people have two daddies, some people have grandparents.
What an interesting question.
And it's just, yeah, kids will just come out of the blue with stuff like this.
Yeah.
Out of nowhere. And I'll say those things to her and she just goes, okay. And we move on. It's not like why or that doesn't make sense. It's just
all right.
Black and like to them, it's just okay. That's okay. That's
okay.
how that is. Like the other day we're driving and out of nowhere she goes, why did all the dinosaurs die?
Whoa, were you ready for that one?
And I was like,
what did you say?
I kind of told her there was a big I don't know a ton about dinosaurs. First of all, let's just get into that. I don't know. I've never. So from what my knowledge, I'm like, I think there was a big explosion and it kind of just took all the dinos out. And she's
That's a good answer.
Yeah. And she's like, well, where did they go? And I'm like, they died. And she's like, well, what happens when you die? And now it's just a whole, and I'm like, I don't know that, can we talk about this not in the car? I'm like, I'm trying to focus on the navigation system, so I can't get into this whole
deep story. Oh no. Do you know what you're going to say?
This is what I haven't really thought about it, honestly.
Have you and Walter talked about that? That's a deep conversation.
It's hard, especially because then you get into religion, and we were both raised differently.
Yeah. Erryn and I have that too.
His family was very religious growing up and mine not so much. So we do have a bit of different views, and I don't want to bestow either of those on her.
That's so interesting.
I want to allow her to decide for herself but I'm like, man, this is early.
Yeah, a lot earlier than you expected. Yeah. And you could probably for now get away with just your answer that you did.
Exactly.
But one day you're going to have to cross that.
One day I'm going to have to cross that bridge along with several others that I'm not ready for. So I think
have you
they
and Walter
come a lot
had those
sooner.
Conversations? Like what are we going to talk?
We're very open at home, like about things. Like I don't ever hide anything from her to an extent. Like, of course, like she's still young. So some things aren't to be talked about or don't need to be talked about yet. But like things like periods, like she knows, she's seen me, she's mommy, what's going on? I say mommy's has her period, and then she kind of moves on and she doesn't ask any further questions. But if she were to, I would talk. I want these things not to be a taboo topic in our home. I want them to just be normal topics.
You know what's interesting alongside that? Like when I was visiting one of my girlfriends a while back, she was changing her son's diaper or whatever, and she said she called his penis to him. She's like, oh, yeah, don't touch your penis or whatever about your penis.
Always.
And I was like,
in our home, it is always penis and vagina.
Yeah.
It is always. It's never, we don't call it different things. No. And specifically because I don't remember where I heard this once, but they said that A, it's anatomically correct.
Right.
Why call it something else?
Yeah.
B, if heaven forbid something were to happen to them,
they
are able to identify exactly what body part has been harmed.
Right.
And if they're to say something like my muffin or something, that's not clear.
Right.
So it's very important for them. I don't know. What do people call it these days? I don't know. Do people call it that? Maybe not. But that way it's very clear.
No, that makes sense. So, but for me, I'm not used to that. Like I already have kind of like a childish vocabulary.
I was going to say, you do give...
I give everything a nickname
though.
So like I'm already like, like I'll say like, I'm going to go to the toilet. And it's like, that's a very childish way to say that. Like maybe that's very annoying, but that's just like who I am. So like
it's endearing for me.
So like for my son now, obviously he's still an infant, he doesn't know, but yeah, I need to get used to being like, that is your penis, instead of like, look at your little
and I've made that
wiener.
very clear to my husband from the get-go. This is what we will call these things.
And
initially he was a little uncomfortable with saying those words to our kids, but he's become
a little uncomfortable.
He's become comfortable with it.
Good.
Now it's just like, you know,
it's part of life.
Yeah, because
we're grown adults.
Right.
These are your children.
We're raising humans, and that is a hard job. So this is
Anyways, we got way off track.
This is what we do,
So, I think what's good to know is that we are back in person.
Yes.
And our goal is to bring you an episode a week.
Yes.
through 2025. So we're holding ourselves accountable. We're saying that out loud,
Yep.
and we're going to try to make it happen. There may be some virtual catch-ups tossed in there just because we are both moms and life is hard and
they'll
real.
be traveling
Yeah.
and doing all sorts of different things. I know my kids are in like 45 different sports. So,
Yeah, it's tough,
but
but
we're
we'll make
going to
it
do
work.
our best to
Yeah.
get that episode out a week. Like you said, whether that be in person, hopefully the majority of them are,
Yeah.
or a little virtual catch up. We'll try our best.
Yeah,
and
we've got
hopefully we have some really great guests.
Yeah, we're very, very, very excited about some of the topics we're bringing forward to you, and we can't wait to share them with you. Like I said, they're all things that we're interested about and curious in. So if there's topics that you think fall in line with that, drop them in the comments, and we'll look into some.
We try to
experts.
stay around a parenting type theme. However, we do veer out into health and wellness as well, just because
Yeah.
we're both passionate about stuff like that.
Yeah, we're interested.
So
Yeah.
we're trying to learn, and we're both on our own health and wellness journeys ourselves.
Yeah.
So we do kind of veer into those type of topics as well.
Yeah. So with that being said, I think we can jump on over and check out this chat with my husband, Erryn Esser. We always joke about Erryn Easter and Erryn Esser are so close, but no, my husband's on, and we're so excited to share this chat with you. So
Yeah, we hope you enjoy it.
Yeah.
See you next time. Bye.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Mama Bear podcast. I'm Brie.
And I'm Erryn.
And today we are interviewing our very first guest, my favorite guest so far, seeing as you're the first guest, but also my husband and favorite?
No, definitely not favorite Erryn.
Second favorite, Erryn. So welcome to the podcast.
Woo!
Thank you for having me. Happy to be here.
And we are super, super excited today to talk to Erryn. He just recently had an oral surgery that I had never heard of before.
No, I had never heard of it either. We mentioned it previously that he was in doing his surgery the one day and that we would update you. So I'm very excited to learn about everything about the surgery because I have no idea. It is brand new to me.
Yeah, so we're going to touch a little bit on why he got the surgery, what the surgery is all about, and who is a possible candidate for something like this. So, Erryn, first and foremost, why don't you give us a little overview as to what the surgery was called, what it's about, how you learned about it.
Okay. So I've had back pain since I was like 19, 20, and other issues since around then. So about a year or two ago, I started really diving into my health and researching what could be the cause of my symptoms of this back pain that kind of showed up for no reason, and a couple other things. And I came across this dentist on Instagram through a podcast, and I read his book, and it just opened my whole eyes that many people's issues are actually from their mouth, for multiple different things. His main things that he talks about are having root canals in your mouth, metal fillings in your mouth, which I had a ton of metal fillings, and that when your wisdom teeth are removed, you can have something that's called a jaw cavitation, which is basically a little hole or fatty degenerative bone where your tooth used to be, didn't heal properly. And when I read his book and I watched a video on it, I went, that is probably me, because my wisdom teeth, when it got removed, went so horribly. And so then I went down this whole route, watched podcasts and read books all about it, and I decided to do the surgery to fix my jaw cavitations. And that was like 2 months ago.
So this is like an elective surgery that
Yes.
that you chose to do.
Yeah.
And did you try other things to help with your back pain and stuff prior to this that just didn't help?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Since I was like 19, 20, I did chiropractic stuff for like 5-10 years.
Right.
None of it ever seemed to help.
Okay.
Stretches. He went down a rabbit hole, many different routes as to why his back pain might be there. And then I believe it was the meridian lines. Is that correct?
Yeah. So almost no one knows this. Teeth, each tooth is an organ in the body, and they're connected via meridian lines throughout the whole rest of your body.
Have you heard of this before?
No.
Yes. Everyone thinks your tooth is just like a piece of bone.
Yeah, right.
And no, your tooth is essentially a living organ that has all sorts of veins and blood vessels and is connected to your entire body.
Okay.
So if you have an issue with your tooth, it can affect other parts of your body, and people have absolutely no idea.
I do know that like when you get an infection in your mouth, it can affect like many different things in your body.
That's
like it can be a lot more serious than what you would first expect, because you would think, I just have a tooth infection, but it can actually like spread like, through your entire, like you can become septic from a tooth infection.
Absolutely.
Really.
The most common one is like, if you have gum disease, your chance of like, I think it's like a heart attack or like heart disease goes up like by an astronomical amount.
Right.
It's because the bacteria in your mouth from the gum disease get into your bloodstream and it goes straight to your heart.
Okay, so you learned about this on a podcast.
Yeah.
And then you started doing your own research on it.
Yeah.
Well, I think to touch back on the meridian line thing, like he was able to trace which tooth had an issue down to the back pain, so it's connected.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yes, no, that does make sense. So they gave you kind of like a grid that would say like which tooth would attach to which.
Yeah, you can just Google it. You can Google
ailment,
Google meridian tooth chart.
Okay.
So this is separate from the surgery.
Okay.
Like before.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you can see which each tooth is connected to each body. So your wisdom teeth are connected to, if I remember correctly, the number one is your heart. Most of your teeth are connected to your heart. So that's why if you have gum disease, your risk of heart disease goes way up. So it's connected to your heart. It is also connected to your diadem, which is part of your small intestine.
Okay.
It is also connected, I believe, to your wrists and I believe your foot, depending on which side. So if you have it on your right foot, it's connected.
And so you said the small intestine is, I believe you had mentioned there's something along the lines of teeth issues and like, what's that?
Bowel issues?
Bowel issues.
Yeah.
So some people that have, what's that called?
Irritable bowel syndrome.
Irritable bowel
Yeah.
syndrome. A lot of people actually, the underlying cause is their teeth, which I found that very shocking.
That is very
So the
shocking.
first podcast I listened to, they had what was called a biological dentist. And this
which
is...
I'd never heard of.
No, I didn't know that there was even different kinds of
Yeah.
dentists.
So what we've actually been talking about this whole time is biological dentistry essentially.
Okay.
And these are basically a dentist that looks at the entire body and realizes, hey, if there's something wrong with your mouth, it can affect your whole body. Modern dentistry knows nothing about that and assumes, oh no, if we give you a root canal, it won't affect anything in your body.
Like they're very localized folk.
Very localized.
Yeah.
Yes. And that's pretty much all modern the whole modern healthcare
Right.
system. But a biological dentist or a holistic dentist goes, hey, your tooth or your mouth can affect your entire body.
They look at the bigger picture.
And then they're gonna have a much more health mind to dentistry. Most biological dentists, they don't like metals in your mouth, they don't like fluoride, and they have a whole bunch of other alternatives that are generally more healthier than a standard dentist.
Okay.
So I listened to this podcast with a biological dentist, and he basically said metals in your mouth are absolutely horrible for you. And I went, well, I have like 5 or 6 mercury fillings in my mouth that I've had since I was like 12.
Most people do. I
A
think.
lot of people
In
actually,
our age group, absolutely.
It's actually shocking because I was just yesterday talking to a coworker about she was being told that her young son, he's like 4, was needing caps.
Okay.
Like metal caps, and she's very hesitant on doing this because she really doesn't want to.
Why would they give him a metal cap as a 4-year-old?
I guess they've told her that his teeth have some sort of cavities.
Yeah.
And it's preventative, so you cap them before they get really, really bad and cause further issues.
Yeah, that's really sad.
Yeah.
Because, one, you can heal a cavity.
Right.
No one knows about this.
Okay.
Your tooth remineralizes constantly throughout the day, and if you don't have the right minerals, then it can't heal. And then when you have a cavity, it won't heal. So, and a modern dentist just goes, what I learned this saying from this guy that I listened to on the podcast, he says, an average dentist just does drill, fill, and bill.
Okay.
So they drill your tooth, they fill it, they bill you, and they walk away and say, oh, that was great. I made some money and I helped that person. It's like, well, in reality, you probably didn't need to do that unless the cavity was really, really deep. But yeah, you can absolutely heal a cavity. It's
Okay.
absolutely true.
That's brand new information to me.
Yeah.
But you would need to fix your diet and you would need to remineralize your teeth. So you got to eat nutritious food that has tons of minerals.
Right.
Which is absolutely possible, but just most people are unaware of this.
Right.
So first, that's really sad about that. Second of all, adding metal as a 4-year-old, that's super sad.
Right. And eventually, I mean, that tooth would fall out and the metal would fall out with it. Like, it would not.
Oh, that's interesting.
Because they're baby teeth.
That's interesting.
Right.
I didn't think about that.
Yeah, so
Okay.
that it wouldn't
But
be
still, it's
for
still
their
having metal.
lifetime. But yeah, it's something
If they're
that
going to
she's
cap it, they
struggling
should
with.
cap it with like the ceramic.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
So what we've been told is for that, what she has taught me is that they would have to put him out for that. I guess it's like a longer procedure, a more difficult procedure
Wow.
to do the ceramic for whatever reason. I don't know anything but behind it, but
Yeah.
that's just the information they've relayed to her. And they said it's absolutely possible if that's the route you want to take.
Yeah, but then you're talking about
right,
putting him under.
exactly. So, anyways, we veered off here, but
but
so
a biological dentist generally realizes that metal in your mouth is really bad for you.
right,
Really toxic. And acts like a conductor in your mouth, essentially, because we are electrical beings. And so any sort of metal is bad for you. So the answer, like she said, is a ceramic or porcelain option. And a biological dentist would know that. And the things they can do nowadays with technology is amazing.
So my question is now, so you did all this research, decided I want to go this route, I want to try this surgery.
Yeah.
How did you, A, find out that you were a candidate for this, and B, decide which biological dentist or you were going to utilize? Like, how did you find your biological dentist?
Yeah, so that was a journey itself. It was quite difficult. So we live in between London and Sarnia, Ontario here. And if you Google biological dentist, there's none in the area. The closest was 2 hours into the States. And so I called them up. It was not cheap to do even an initial consultation. And I booked it out like a couple months in advance. And so I went and did that. Did a bunch of cleanings with them, whole initial consultation, and they took the metals out of my mouth.
Okay.
And
That was step one.
That was step one.
So did they, when you first went in to see them, did they do like x-rays or anything to determine that you had this cavity space?
Yeah.
That they did. Okay.
So this initial consultation was your standard modern dentistry, but then with a whole bunch of extra things. They did a saliva test. They did a zinc test. They went through each tooth into the gum, looked around it, and this dentist was in my mouth for like 20 minutes with a mirror, going tooth by tooth, throwing out numbers, whole analysis, and then they do what's called a 3D CBCT scan, which is you put your face in this thing, right? You lean your jaw right up against it, and it's this machine, and it spins around your camera and takes a 3D image of your entire face or your entire jaw.
It's kind of like an MRI for your head.
Yeah. Takes about 30 seconds to a minute.
Okay.
And then this is a much deeper picture of your mouth or your jaw that a standard x-ray cannot see.
Okay.
Yeah. And so through that, then they can see, hey, that there's altered on the document that whoever looks at the 3D image wrote right on it, altered healing in multiple areas of my wisdom teeth.
Okay. So when you went in, did you tell them that you were assuming that this was an issue that you were having? Okay.
Yeah.
And then they just did the further investigations and decided, yes, you are a candidate for this surgery.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we did the whole test. I then sat down after like a month later, once we have all the results. She goes, "Yep, we can remove your metal fillings." Which, just to finish that thought, if you are going to get your metal fillings removed, just don't go to a modern dentist, because getting the mercury out of your mouth can actually be more dangerous because of the gas and all the little mercury shards when they remove it. So there's got to be a safe practice to do that. And a biological dentist or certain dentists that are trained in certain techniques, they have the ability to do that. So if you are scared about your mercury fillings, don't just go get them removed from a standard dentist. Go find someone who's trained. So, and this dentist is trained specifically in that. So they were like, "Yep, we can do that." So I booked that in, and we did do that over 2 full days.
Again, very expensive.
Yeah, I can imagine. So this was now, a month later after your consultation?
Yeah, a month or 2 later.
Okay.
Yeah, and then I was like, "Okay, let's do it all at once." As much as we can. So I went in one day. I was there for like 4 or 5 hours.
Right.
And then like 3 or 4 days later, I came back and did the other side.
Okay.
Yeah.
So so it takes like 3 or 4 or 5 hours each time.
It depends on the amount you have.
Fillings you have.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the first day was the longest because I had one tooth, I think, with a mercury filling that was just in the center. That was easy for them to do. But then the other tooth had it on each side.
Oh,
okay.
And so she was like, if we remove that, the integrity of your tooth is pretty much gone because we're removing like each side of it. So she's like, then I'm going to take out the center of that tooth as well. And then I'm going to connect it with a porcelain crown.
Okay.
So, and they like 3D print a like porcelain crown right then and there.
Okay.
So they actually like take an image of your tooth. Oh, so first they drill it on the mercury, and then they take a before image of your tooth of what it looks like. Then they drill out all the mercury, and then they take a picture of what's left of your tooth, and then the image, this computer can see everything that's missing.
Oh, and then it 3D prints
that extra.
So cool.
And then they just cap it, and she seals it.
That's
so
very
it's
cool.
identical to my old tooth.
Wow,
or
that's very
like
neat.
probably 90 to 99% as
Right.
similar as it could be.
Right,
Yeah.
that's very neat. Okay, so then after you had this all done,
Yep.
how long before you went in? What was the next part of the surgery? Like, what was your next part of your journey?
So right at that consultation, we're like, okay, mercury fillings, we're going to do all this. She goes, hey, looks, it does look like you have altered healing. And I'm like, okay, so how do I book that in? What do I do? And she's like, oh, we don't do that here.
The altered healing meaning some sort of like cavitation.
Yes.
Right.
That's
Jaw cavitation.
from the wisdom
Yes.
teeth removal.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay.
So should we first define what that is? Because
Right.
people
Yeah.
probably have no idea what that is.
Yeah. Let's.
Okay, so essentially, when you have your tooth removed, any tooth, that's very traumatizing on the body. You are suddenly opening up a huge gap in your mouth, and it basically wants to panic heal. So it doesn't want to be open to the rest of the world. So it wants to heal as quickly as possible so that there's no infection can get in there. And it's even worse if you have four teeth removed at once. So that's a lot of trauma on the body. And it also requires a lot of nutrients and a lot of minerals to heal jawbone. That's a lot. So what can end up happening, essentially, is your body kind of panic heals over the top. It kind of heals your gums over. And then the bone underneath, though it wants to heal, you don't have enough nutrients or minerals to heal it quickly. And now that you've pulled the tooth, you've pulled all the roots, you've pulled all the blood vessels, it now goes to heal, and it kind of heals improperly.
Okay.
And it leaves a kind of what they call a hole or a cavitation in your jaw. Jaw cavitation's the actual name for it. I'm going to Google it right here. They have a couple different names for it. So
this is very common with like any wound now. Like, and now that I'm like actually processing this, because I feel like when you told me initially, it was a lot of information,
Yeah.
and like I didn't really understand what was going on. Now that I'm actually processing it, it actually makes sense, because any wound, most wounds that are deep in your body, when we go to dress them, we actually have to pack them with like a steri strip or not steri strip, sorry, some sort of packing or gauze, so that they heal from the inside out.
Right.
Or else your body heals over them superficially and leaves a cavity.
that's essentially
which
what's
is
happening.
exactly what's happening in your
Same
mouth.
idea.
So that totally
Yeah.
makes sense, that because you're not packing it,
Yeah.
it's healing over the top and leaving this hole.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes, that totally makes sense.
And
it's
then
not-
a lot of people don't have the right nutrients, not taking the right supplements, not eating a whole diet, or getting the right things, so that, and if you think of it, a lot of, these wisdom teeth removals are happening to like children or young ones, 18 years old, right? And they don't know about nutrients. A lot of people don't.
Yeah,
generally
right.
happen between 15 to 19 years old.
And then
generally when these kids are
having
not being the most healthy, eating
Right.
the most
Of
healthy
course,
diet.
right? Like,
We have poor habits, and then what's to be expected with the healing process,
Right.
right?
Yeah. And it's not actually a hole in the body. There's not
Right.
empty space there.
Right.
But it is what is called fatty or degenerative bone. So
Right.
one of the names for this is called the Nico lesion, which means neuralgia-inducing cavitational osteonecrosis. So
a lot of big words.
neuralgia.
It's easy to
So the other one is FDOJ, which stands for fatty degenerative osteonecrosis
We're gonna put
jawbone.
the word
Jawbone.
up on the
Across
screen.
the screen, yeah.
Essentially, there's fatty jawbone in there that didn't heal solid, or neuralgia-induced jawbone in there. And because you didn't have the right nutrients to heal properly at the time.
Right.
And because now you don't have any blood vessels to go there to heal it, it just isn't. It's a hole or a cavitation where basically bad stuff can harbor heavy
Right.
metals,
Like a bacteria.
mold, bacteria,
Yeah.
and it kind of can just sit there in your body, and then it never goes anywhere. So it
Okay.
kind of just is this chronic low-grade inflammation that kind of
Okay.
sits there forever.
And then
Okay.
based on which meridian, right,
Yeah.
is connected on that tooth, could lead to, like
Yeah.
he was saying,
Yeah.
a lot of the wisdom teeth are removed at that back spot. A lot of people have, what's it called again?
IBS.
IBS, irritable bowel syndrome.
Irritable bowel syndrome.
Because it's
right,
connected
'cause
to
it's
your
connected.
your
Right,
small
okay.
intestine.
So were you finding that you had bowel issues with this as well?
Yeah, so my 3 issues when I was around 19, 20 that started was lower back pain, irritable bowel syndrome, and I started to wake up to pee in the night. And
So I
that
guess we
never went
should-
away for like a decade plus, and none of them are still perfectly gone, but huge improvements in the last like year and a half in my life.
So we should preface this as when I got pregnant, Erryn had a minor awakening of, okay, I don't have a couple of these things in my life going well, being those things you just listed, waking up to use the washroom through the night. He wasn't sleeping well. He had back pain, bowel issues. And he's like, if I need to take care of my wife and child, I need to get myself figured out first. That's kind of what spurred all this into action. Okay. And then he was like, how do I figure these things out? So he dove deep into the research, landed with this oral,
realizing
journey.
This could be one of the pieces of the puzzle of why this all started in my life.
Okay, right. So you've now had the metal removed from your mouth, and they say we're going to do this surgery. What does this surgery look like?
So do we want to go into the surgery, or we want to go how I found the guy to do the surgery first?
Okay, so let's do that first.
So the dentist office, actually, Erryn came back and he was like, yes, I have the cavitations. They can see it on the report, the
3D scan.
But they don't do it at that office.
Okay.
So now back to the drawing board. They gave him a couple places to look into, and then
they were like, we want to get into this. It's kind of new science for in America. Okay. It's actually been around quite a bit in Europe, but it's not around in modern dentistry in America. So she's
off to Italy.
Many people
Vacation.
do that.
Yeah.
The guy that wrote this book, I learned all of this. His name is Dr. Dom, and he's from Germany.
Okay.
And most of these places are from Switzerland or Germany that do all of this biological dentistry. That's kind of where it kind of all started. So she's like, I have a periodontist that's only like 30 minutes from here. That
also in Michigan.
Just started doing this in the last year or two.
And you don't really want to risk such a big surgery.
Well, someone that's very, very new. Yeah.
But she's like, she's really good. Go to her. That's my only thing I can tell you what to do. So I call him up, book a consultation, go there, and she kind of looks at the scans and she goes, yes, we can do this. Kind of says the same thing. I've only done like 1 or 2 of these. She's like, I have a couple more of these booked in the next like 6 months. And so my first question is, well, have you had anyone that had major results from this? Like someone who walked away and was like, oh, I had this issue and it's gotten better.
Yeah.
And she's like, no, not yet. I've only done like 1 or 2.
Okay.
And she's like, this is kind of new science. A lot of people think it's kind of taboo. Yeah. It's more popular in Europe. I'm like, yeah, I kind of know all this.
Yeah.
So she's like, we could do it. We could book you in. I know I'll do a good job. But like, I can't promise this is going to make any difference in your life.
Right.
And I'm like, okay. So I was like, okay, book me in. But in the back of my mind, I was like, I'm going to look for other options.
Absolutely.
So then I start looking for other options. And the next guy I find is 8 or 9 hours away. He's in New York. And I find this guy's website. And this guy has it on the front page of his website. He has been a biological dentist for like 15 years. He seems to be the best of the best. All the other biological dentists that I follow on social media follow this guy. Even though he's got a small following, he doesn't have a big following online, but all of the big guys follow him. So I'm like, okay, that's a good sign.
Yeah.
And so we try to get booked in with this guy, and he is unbelievably expensive and unbelievably booked up. Like, to get a hold of this guy or his team is very, very difficult. Multiple calls, multiple emails. His price was like 5 or 6 times the price of the original girl that I was going to go to. Might have been more. And we're going to have to drive like 8 or 9 hours to see this guy. Yeah. But this guy has documents of like, this is the plan. This is how we do it. They have
like a travel plan. So they'll set you up with how to get there, book your flights, book your hotels.
So this is something he does.
This is like
something he specializes in.
And didn't he train alongside Dr. Dom as well?
He didn't train along Dr. Dom, but he's like buddies with Dr. Dom.
Okay.
Yeah. So he's like on the same category of
like caliber. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
And then you have to keep in mind also, I was due like a month or 2 before, like we were having a baby, and then you were going to be 2 years, would have had to take this 2-month-old or whatever it was.
We're trying to figure out like
York,
when are we going to make this happen?
Do this whole thing.
Yeah.
So that kind of played a big role too, because you may have acted differently had we not been due to have our baby.
Yeah.
So that was option 1 that you found, right?
Option 1 was the periodontist in Michigan. Then the second
New
option
York.
Was like the expert guy in New York. And even the one thing that really wanted me to go with him was on his document going over FDOJ's jaw cavitations. He was like, I actually fix people's jaw cavitations from their previous jaw cavitation surgery that it didn't work. So I was like,
so
ooh.
people that have gone to other doctors
to get this fixed. He's like the second or third option to fix it. And I was like, well, I don't want to.
That they're so few and far between.
Right.
Like the closest you could find was Michigan, and then from that it's New York.
Yeah.
So like,
yeah. So my third option, which I found, is the guy who wrote this book, Dr. Dom, that was on this podcast. That is kind of the guy letting everyone in the world know about.
He's the one that
this.
started your journey, essentially.
Right.
About the jaw cavitations, yes. Another dentist started the journey about of the metals and everything like that. But Dr. Dom is the guy who read the book and was like, whoa, this makes sense.
Right.
This might be it. So he actually trains other dentists and has a directory on his website of dentists that he's trained.
Okay.
And one of them just happened to be just popped up in Toronto.
Oh, okay.
And I'm like, okay, so that's interesting. So we book a consultation call with them. I just do it like over FaceTime or Google Meet. And I chat with him. He is reasonably priced, so that's a good start right off the bat. I'm like, hey, this other guy has done it thousands of times. This other girl's only done it once or twice. How many times have you done it? He's like, I've done it about 30 times.
So he falls somewhere in the middle.
Somewhere in the middle.
I'm like, okay.
With price and with experience.
That's a good middle ground. It's in Canada. I don't have to drive as far. And he's like, I literally trained with Dr. Dom like 6 months ago. He showed me exactly his routine of how to do this, and I follow it to a T. Dr. Dom would be the ultimate guy to go and do this, but he's in Germany, and he's the most expensive of them all.
Right.
And I can imagine he's booked up very far.
Right.
So,
and he was investing into the process. Like he was bringing in IV room therapy, right? And other things.
So they turn Dr. Dom is kind of, and all these other biological dentists, they, again, make it all about the body. So while you're like having a dental surgery, you'll have like an IV in you.
Okay, so he's expanding this beyond just like an
full
oral surgery. Yeah.
Wellness journey.
Yeah.
Okay.
To help you heal, to help your jawbone heal and to recover faster. So after listening to this guy, I was like, this guy seems like the in-between option. This guy seems like the right guy to do it with. So we booked it in. And that was in December of 2024. Yeah, and it went fairly well. Yeah.
Okay, so now you've found who you're going with.
Yep.
And so from when you started this journey to when you booked it in, how long did that process take?
I first listened to my very first dental podcast probably either January or February of last year, so 2024, and I had the surgery done in December. But I first heard about jaw cavitations in probably March.
Okay.
So yeah, it was like a 7-8 month thing.
7-8 months. And then how long did it take you to actually get into the surgery? You said December?
This guy luckily was, because he's been a dentist for like 5-10 years, but he learned about biological dentistry, went and did a bunch of training and was like, whoa, there's a whole world here that I should get into. So he just became a biological dentist only in the last year. So he's actually open for clients, which he was like, hey, I can get you in next week.
Oh, amazing.
So
amazing.
One of the interesting things that they do for a surgery like this, and a lot of biological dentists will do, is they actually will get your blood work before as well, because they want to make sure that you're in a healing state. And one of the main things that they'll check is your vitamin D levels.
Okay.
Because vitamin D is super essential for bone growth. Because vitamin D works with calcium and K2 to build your bones.
Yes.
Build your jawbone. So if your vitamin D level is super low, then that's one of the markers that could affect your healing. So it's a very
holistic process.
Yes.
Totally. This guy took it very seriously that like, if we're going to do this, I want you to get your nutrition up and your what you're supplementing with up. I need your levels to be at a certain way before the surgery and after the surgery.
Which you're already very health conscious. So for him to say that to you, I mean, anyone that would go would have to probably, it'd be like a whole
thing,
a whole process before they can actually get this surgery done.
It just makes you feel good going into something to heal a greater process in your body, to know that they're looking at it from all angles too.
I mean, and it makes sense for them to want you to be at the best you can be before they kind of knock you down, so that you can build back up.
Well, the whole point,
quicker and easier.
And then when it heals, it doesn't leave the cavitation you just...
Right.
Yeah,
like,
so it doesn't happen again.
Right, and so the ideal outcome would be that obviously you feel even better than you did before. Right?
Yeah.
So then walk us through what the day of surgery looks like.
Yeah. So I drove there. Took like 3 or 4 hours to get there.
Leaving behind his poor wife.
And 2-3 month old baby. So it's like a regular dentist office. I sat down in the chair, and then they take your blood right off the bat, which is interesting. Most dentists won't do that. And what they do that is they're going to make platelet-rich plasma, PRP. Do you know what that is?
You know what? Is that like the facials that people get
Yeah,
done
yeah.
too? Yeah,
They
I
take
have
your
heard
plasma
of,
and spin it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they're going to take your blood. They're going to have a centrifuge. I think it was sitting
We
in the
actually
corner.
had these in high school.
It's
I don't
only like-
remember using them
I don't really.
in science class.
No.
That's
We'd,
cool.
we
No, I don't
had them at
remember.
our high school.
For blood or for other things?
Well, we would spin it to separate the DNA.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, and then also in university we used
That's
them.
cool.
I don't recall.
So they take your blood, they put it in the centrifuge, and
Like
it's
this little
this
machine
little
that's
thing in the corner,
spins.
Yeah.
and then they'll use that later. But then they put me in an IV. They do a little bit of antibiotics and a little bit of like steroids or something like that. He's like, we want to make sure you have no infection and we want your body is like ready to heal. Then they numb your mouth
With like a localized
anesthetic.
Anesthetic, okay.
like a regular dental
Yeah.
surgery. And
So to be clear, this is not under general anesthesia. This is
You
just
can
under
be.
local. Oh, you can. Okay.
I
You chose not to be.
would definitely not want to
Okay.
do that. When I had my wisdom teeth removed originally, I was not.
Oh yeah, you didn't tell that story.
Yeah, we can go back to that too.
Yeah.
But that went
the
horribly.
trauma that
Yeah.
started this all. Yeah.
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 Yeah, we should have started with that.
We
But that's
should've
okay.
started with that.
That's okay.
That's-
We can go back to it. So then now it's all numb. They did three of the cavitations or wisdom tooth, my bottom right, bottom left, and upper left. So they freeze the whole left side of my mouth. And then I don't know what tools they use, but they somehow cut my gum open, and then they take a drill and they drill. It's like a sonic drill too, which is a drill that uses sound or something like that. He's like, it's way better on your bones and way less traumatizing, I think. So I was like, okay, cool. So he drills it open until they hit the cavitation. And they describe it. I can't see it, right?
Right.
I actually had my GoPro in there recording the whole thing, which I haven't looked at the footage, so that might be interesting to see. And they actually put it in my mouth and was like, "Oh, I think we can see it like on the camera."
Yeah.
So I would love to look at that eventually. But so they get there and they're like, "Okay, we found it," and they describe it as like a black, almost like oily tar substance.
Oh.
And that is like. He's like,
It's a little disturbing to
Yeah.
know
That-
that's sitting in your mouth.
that's sitting in your
Yeah.
mouth. And that's essentially
And thinking anyone who's had a wisdom
Is
tooth
likely
removal
to have this sitting in
could
their
have
mouths.
this.
Yeah.
Dr. Dom says about 90 to 95% of people that have their wisdom teeth
I
have,
have
at,
had my wisdom
mind-blowing.
teeth removed.
have at minimum
Mind-blowing.
one of these. I had 3.
Wow.
Yeah.
Minimum 1. Yeah.
Wow.
That is mind blowing.
That's
Yeah.
scary.
So essentially, they're looking to remove this substance, this
Yeah.
black substance.
Yes,
that
this
there's.
degenerative fatty bone tissue,
Okay.
which I guess it's apparently black and kind of oily.
Okay.
I'm assuming that's because it's
Dead?
just dead toxins.
Yeah.
Right.
Just bacteria,
Right.
mold, heavy metals,
Oh.
whatever it is, right?
Yeah.
So then they literally suck that out,
Mm-hmm.
and then they ozone it. So ozone is an oxygen molecule, which is 2 oxygens then they add a 3rd oxygen into it, and it becomes a highly antioxidant
Okay.
gas or liquid. Ozone is, in general, very good for the human body. They use it to disinfect everything, and there's so many ozone treatments and therapies out there. So what they'll do is he sprays ozone gas in there, and it just like disinfects everything. I've seen multiple podcasts where people have talked about it, where they've had like a root canal or a wisdom tooth jaw cavitation, and actually sprayed ozone in there, and then the person was like, I could feel it just removed the entire infection. Like it
Wild.
just like kills all the bacteria.
That's wild.
And I'm just like, that's very interesting.
That's
so
very cool.
They disinfect it with the ozone, and then they take that platelet-rich plasma, so your own blood, but like concentrated, and then they pack it in there, and then they just sew it back up.
Okay, so they just fill it with the ozone and
Yeah.
your platelets.
Yeah.
Right.
And then nothing else goes in there.
I don't think they put
Okay.
anything else in
Okay.
there. Yeah.
And then they just close it back up and
Yep.
okay. And then how
And so they did that 3 times. Over
Right.
each one took about 45 minutes to an hour.
Okay, so you were in there for quite a while, 4
Yeah.
hours ish, 3-4
Yeah.
hours.
Yeah. And then obviously my mouth is swollen and hurts
Mm-hmm.
and frozen. And then
What's the pain level? 1 to 10.
it was less painful than getting my wisdom teeth removed.
And less than you expected.
Yeah, it
Okay.
still sucked.
I mean,
it was
I feel
miserable.
like your mouth is very sensitive, so
Yeah.
that's like a difficult place to heal, especially
Yeah.
trying to eat and have like proper nutrition to heal while having mouth surgery, like that's difficult.
Yeah.
I know you came home and it was like you're going to be in pretty serious pain for the next week to 2 weeks.
He
you were not.
Yeah. He was like, I want you on the couch for 2 or 3 days, and then I want you to do 2 weeks of like, I don't want you working out. I just want you to like live like
because
super chill.
The other thought is too like the stress on your body. So a lot of people get a wisdom tooth surgery, take the day or two off school, and then they're back at life, right? They go to sport, right? They live their life pretty normally afterwards, not thinking that even though when the pain is gone, your body's still healing. And in order to heal that cavitation or that wound properly, your body needs that rest.
Right.
And that's the same thing with like postpartum and things like this. Like you
Which
think
we
you've
don't
healed
do,
and you're not fully there yet. So the stress you're adding to your body by day to day, whatever, whether you're working out or go back to work, it can lead to a longer recovery time or impacted recovery. But I had him changing diapers the next day.
As you should.
Yeah, it went really well. Yeah. On a pain level, it was definitely not as painful as my wisdom teeth being removed.
And did you have to eat some sort of specific diet afterwards?
No.
No,
I was
whatever.
like, he put
You could tolerate?
dissolvable stitches
Yeah.
in. That was the biggest issue, that a couple things got stuck on there.
Yeah.
He was like, hey, they'll be gone in 6 weeks. Which
But you
they,
ate
they
a mostly
were.
like liquid soft food
Yeah,
diet, like
for the first like
soups.
week or two.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then like 2 or 3 weeks in, I like tried eating some solids, and I was like, oh, I'm good. And I was,
Yeah.
So
I
the
never
recovery of your mouth, like the pain wise, it was kind of like similar to that of a typical wisdom teeth removal.
Yeah, like 2 weeks.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. That's good.
Yeah.
That's good.
Do you want to touch on what happened with your wisdom teeth, or
Yeah.
are you finished? Do you have more? Do you want to say?
No,
about
that's
the day of
that's
the
basically
bulk
how
of
the
it?
surgery went. Yeah, it was described to me originally from the initial girl that I talked to. She's like, it'll be very similar to getting your wisdom teeth like removed again. That's what it will feel like.
So-
and I would agree. That's kind of what it felt like.
So before we get into the trauma of your wisdom teeth,
Yeah.
Is there a follow up or anything you have to do with them? Like, do you have to go for more imaging? Like, how do you know that this
Worked.
Like, how do you know that that bacteria hasn't regrown or anything
Yeah.
like that?
So that was the first thing I asked him. We were all done, and I was like, should we like come back in? Should I get another 3D scan done in like the next couple of months and stuff? And he was like, you seem super healthy. The surgery went super well. As long as you eat well, keep your protein high, your vitamin D high, everything went super well. Ozone worked good. The platelets went well. He's like, I wouldn't even think about it. You're going to heal perfect. He's like, I have no worries about it. He's like, if you want to, in 6 months, we can do a 3D scan.
I feel like just to know, it
just
would be
to
nice
know.
to get
And-
the
Yeah.
scan again.
What I probably would
Right.
like to do is either go back to him
Just
or
for some sort of conclusion.
my
Yeah.
other biological dentist. So I originally had all those scans done in either February or March of last year. So I'd like to do a follow-up with either them or him and compare the images of like,
Right.
hey, here's all your metals and your cavitations, and now here's your new scan with neither of
Just
those.
for some peace of mind for yourself that
Yeah.
you know, like, this has
Yeah.
worked. Like,
yeah,
this
it's
went,
gone.
This has
There's
gone as
no
planned.
longer decaying tissue.
Did
in your
he
mouth.
mention any indicators that you would notice if it didn't work?
He just said like if it was like infected or
Okay,
like started
which are
or it didn't heal or it
typical
starting
infection-
and stuff like
yeah,
that. Yeah, he was just
typical
like typical
infection
stuff.
symptoms, yeah.
And but I was kind of shocked at how chill about it he was. He's like, you're gonna have no issues, and I didn't seem to have any issues. It
Right,
went
which
really
is
well.
great. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so we should, like you said, we should have started with this.
Yeah,
but
so
the
let's go
trauma
back.
that led to this.
and talk about this is kind of a story that like in Erryn's family they talk about often. Like,
Okay.
like
I haven't heard it.
Yeah, so it was probably the most like physical trauma I've ever experienced. So I was 18 or 19. I haven't experienced much trauma, so I'm very lucky.
In saying that, yes, you've
I'm
been
very lucky.
Yeah.
I'm very lucky. So, but it went much worse than the standard wisdom tooth removal for most people. So I didn't get knocked out, didn't take the anesthetic, and they just went in, and I think I was like maybe 19, recently turned 19. I was like, oh, you get your wisdom teeth removed. That's what should be done. Okay, that's just what everyone does. Didn't really think much about it. Went in, they numbed my mouth, gave me laughing gas. I was like, okay, I've never felt this before. This is hilarious. This is okay. So then he does whatever he needs to do, and he pulls the first tooth in 5 minutes. You feel it pop out. That's weird. Okay, well, I'm going to be out of here in 20 minutes. This is super easy. When he starts pulling the next tooth, 5, 10, 15 minutes goes by. He can't get it. He says, hey, I can't get it. I'm going to move on to your next tooth. 5, 10, 15 minutes. Can't get it. Goes on to the next tooth. 5, 10, 15 minutes. Finally gets that one. So now we're looking at like 45 minutes to an hour. And he's gotten only 2 teeth. He then pulls on the other 2 teeth for like another 15, 20 minutes apiece. So I was on the table for at least an hour and a half. And by that time, the numbness is starting to wear off, and the laughing gas is long gone. And it was basically the last 45 minutes was him yanking on my teeth with my mouth full open, trying to like pull it open, trying to get it. And it was very painful. It was quite brutal. At the very end, he's like, I can't get it.
He didn't give you any more local anesthetic.
I can't remember. I honestly don't think he did.
Yeah.
I'm assuming he kept being like, we're almost there. I'm going to get it. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, so he's like, give him oxygen. So they give me like pure oxygen for like 20 seconds. I sit up and I look in the mirror, blood all over my face. My eyes are like, pupils are fully dilated. I'm like white as a ghost. I look like a zombie. Mm-hmm. And he's like, hey, this has never happened to me. I'm like, been doing dentistry for like 15 years. I've never had to send someone to someone else for a wisdom teeth removal. He's like, I'm gonna have to send you to another guy that has more experience than me in Sarnia.
But at this point, you've had them yanked on and scratched. So now they're just kind of like, essentially just hanging there. Yeah.
And I'm like
sending you away.
Thank God my dad was there. He drove me there and waited. And I'm like a zombie, like pale white blood.
Yeah. Right.
And so we get in the car, and I literally like went into shock.
You're in so much pain.
I like started like bawling my eyes out, and I'm like, I don't know what's wrong. Like, what the heck? I'm like, what? And Dad's like, I don't know what's going on. I'm like, and afterwards he's like, he kind of went into shock.
Your body was going into fight or flight.
Yeah. So then it brought me to the other dentist. They numbed my mouth again, and it took him a while too. I like probably at least 30 minutes, like 15 minutes a tooth, and then he got them both out. And then I went home and didn't actually bleed that much, and like
was the healing process for that like did it seemed like typical?
However,
it seemed great. Where like 2 or 3 days later, I was like, hey, I'm fine. I took my painkillers like the first day, and I'm not one to take much medication or anything like that, so I didn't even take it the second or third day. After that first night, I didn't take any more. Barely bled. I'm like, this is great. Like the dentist, I think, even called my parents and were like, hey, is Erryn doing okay? And they're like, yeah, he's doing fine.
But we should mention, when he got his cavitation surgery, the guy who just performed it found a piece of old tooth.
Yeah.
Oh, that was just decaying in your mouth.
Yep.
And so not only is he cleaning out all the decaying tissue and this oily substance, but also found they just couldn't get it, and so they left it.
And
I wouldn't be surprised if that's actually quite normal as well.
Oh, likely.
Terrible.
Yeah. So how long afterwards did you start noticing these like back pain and
within the year,
IBS and
right?
Probably about a year or two.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. And obviously, like, without knowing that, you would never connect those things, right?
Yeah.
Like, I don't think anyone would.
No, you wouldn't.
Yeah, zero correlation until literally I was like 30 years old.
Wow.
Yeah. And on a preface, I don't think this is the end all be all. No. I was actually kind of hoping it was.
Yeah.
And I was hoping, hey, I got this jaw cavitation surgery. And listening to these podcasts, some people have like immediate results that change their life. And I sadly did not have that. Mm-hmm. But I do think, knowing like, hey, I had a piece of tooth in my mouth and I had degenerative bone, that it absolutely has helped me for sure.
So you think that your symptoms have improved? Obviously have not gone away completely, but they've improved.
Yeah.
That's good.
And I think that this is part of the piece of the puzzle, yeah. I think it's a smaller piece than I had hoped, but I definitely think it is part of my healing journey, absolutely.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, well.
Yeah, it's a lot, eh?
Yeah, it's a lot of information, and it's something I've never heard of before, but I just feel like anytime I hear something like this and then someone tells me, I've had this back pain, it makes me question things, right? It makes you think on a bigger scale.
Right.
Yeah, so, over the last year and a half, I've realized I always just thought it was like chiropractic. Like that was the only solution. You go to a chiropractor and it's kind of just like I had bad posture, so that's all it is. Like just stretch more. And
the way I've explained our healthcare system a lot to people lately is it's a lot of Band-Aids.
Oh, that's
so
exactly
they look at the symptom and they want to heal the symptom, but they don't think about the reason behind the symptom.
Like why
and it's
is
very,
this here?
very common. Yeah, like I've experienced it myself. Like I think we all probably have.
They want to take away your pain, and they focus on that, and so they administer whatever it is.
But our bodies are very holistic. Like,
but
you need to look at the bigger picture.
Connect the overall.
Absolutely.
Like, just to kind of sidetrack from that a little bit, I have like terrible knee pain. And for the longest time, I'm like, what the heck's wrong with my knee? I got like knee MRIs and x-rays done. Everyone's like, your knee is fine. And then finally went to someone who looks at the body a little bit more holistically. And they're like, well, you broke your ankle. And you were in a walking boot for a year and a half and your ankle had to get surgery on it a year after you broke it, and then you were walking weird, so it threw off your knee, which throws off this, and your hips
So
are
your
in line.
whole leg's been now off kilter.
And so now my knee, although there's nothing wrong with it, it's because I walk weird with my ankle. It's like I would have never thought of that.
No,
So
but now that you know.
So now I'm
that's
doing
something that you can do physio
ankle
for.
stretches to
Yes.
fix my knee. And you're like,
Right.
oh, okay, checks.
Right, absolutely. I feel like now in modern day, we are dipping our toe a little bit more into
I think so.
looking at the body as a whole and not as, just one singular.
And I think something
issue.
we have talked about, like you and I have talked about a lot recently too, is like taking your health into your own hands and like not taking no for.
No, you have to. I cannot stress this enough. Advocate for yourself.
You have to.
Because it's the only way. Like, no one knows your body like you
Right.
do. And it is so important for them. If you've been told no time and time again, keep pushing. Because if you
someone
think something
else.
is wrong, something is wrong.
Yeah, look for a different healthcare provider.
Absolutely.
Look for a different stream of healthcare services, like
Right.
whether it's in your local doctor's office or hospital or a naturopath
Because,
or
I would hate for
online.
things to go too far. And then all of a sudden it's like, well, now this issue that started small that could have been dealt with
Right.
is this huge issue.
Right.
And now it's a whole.
I know it's life impacting.
Right.
So it's like sometimes you hear stories like Erryn, and to hear him retell this story in the matter of 30, 45 minutes, whatever this has been, 15, 20 minutes, seems like it's pretty streamlined and fast. But this was a big topic in our life every day, weekly conversations about this. Do we do this? It's a lot of money. It's a lot of time. It took up a lot of your like thought during a day. Like he talked about it often. It became his life in a
Right.
sense. Like, this is a big thing that happened to me. I really want to correct this. And then your family and friends being like, whoa, like dental obsessed much?
Well, and it's kind of like you said, taboo, like something people
Right.
haven't heard of.
Like, okay, your back pain's
People
going to
are
wave
kind of
because
like-
your tooth.
Especially when we talk about like these types of holistic, because it is a newer thing that people are kind of like, you're a little
crazy. So, and
Right?
especially
So-
like I'm 9
you
months
persevered
pregnant.
through that.
Yeah. I was crazy pregnant and having a baby through this time. And for me, I'm like, I'm only thinking about this. Like, I'm having my
Right.
very first baby. And
Right.
here's my husband. Like,
I'm gonna need you to focus here.
yeah, I'm like, dial in. Like,
Yeah.
can't we think of this later? And to him, he was like, well, this could solve everything. Like, I could be a more present husband and father.
Right. Like, yes, it was bigger to him
Bigger,
than just
yeah.
the oral surgery itself.
One of my goals was I did improve multiple of my health symptoms over the last year, but right before the baby came, like one of my goals was I want to be able to sleep through the night
Isn't that hilarious?
before the baby comes. So then, like,
We're having a baby. Now
You
I
will
want to
not-
sleep through the night.
but at least then I know the baby's waking me up. Not
Right.
That
Not
was
your
kind of my
own
goal,
body,
right?
yes.
And I did have some major improvements, but I didn't get there. But
You didn't
we're-
get to sleep through the night. You're working on it.
We're still working on it.
You're still working on
I
it.
think you're doing really good. You slept for the 8 hours straight for the first
For
time.
the first time, I
Like
think,
this
in my
week.
life.
So
yeah.
maybe your body is just taking a longer time to heal
heal.
from this than other
Th-
people who have had immediate results.
This definitely could be still part of it, yeah. Because
Yeah.
apparently to also heal jawbone takes like 4 to 6 months.
Right. So,
Yeah.
it could still be that could still be a major cause.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I definitely think it's part of it.
I want to go through like a bit of a summary and some key takeaways, but do you have anything else you want to mention about like the surgery itself or your experience?
I would just probably talk about in general about metal fillings, root canals, jaw cavitations, and biological dentistry. That's what I would probably want to let everyone know about.
Okay,
Right.
why don't you give
'Cause
us
I don't
quick,
think personally anything about the story else needs to be shared, but
so why don't you give us a quick summary over like, cause that was a lot. That was a lot of information.
Yeah.
So give us a quick breakdown. Like, hi, I'm Erryn. And
who would you like urge to look into this more? Like, who do you think would be an ideal candidate for to look into something like this?
So, Dr. Dom, he does this thing where whenever he goes and speaks in front of everyone, he says, "Okay, everyone's sitting down right now. If you have metals in your mouth, stand up.
Okay.
If you have root canals in your mouth at all, stand up. If anyone's had their wisdom teeth removed, stand up." And he says about 90 to 95% of the audience stands up. And he goes, "Okay, if you haven't fixed any of these issues, you can optimize your health, and all of these things can be affecting you."
so essentially almost everyone this could
Could be a candidate
yes.
for this potentially.
And
it's sadly a difficult thing right now because there's so few of them, but everyone should get away from modern dentistry and go to a biological dentist.
Right.
My very first podcast to listen to, that biological dentist said that modern dentistry is actually causing more harm than good.
Yeah, because they're just, like you said, they're just pull.
And the first time I heard that, I was like, no. And then the more I listened and read, I was like, oh my gosh, it's so true.
Right.
They want to give you a root canal.
So
they're
talk
gonna
about the
pull
root
your wisdom
canal
teeth
again.
Yeah, that's the one area we didn't talk about. Root canals are absolutely horrible for
So
you.
essentially, it's drilling down and taking the live root tissue along with the tooth.
So they essentially, your tooth is infected. It's either dying or just causing a ton of pain because it's infected. So they'll drill out the center of it. Right down. Watch a video of it. It's disgusting.
Oh, they don't remove the tooth. They remove the core of it.
The root canal is to keep your tooth.
Right.
So they drill out the center of it into your jawbone, and they basically pull out all the pulp, all of everything, get rid of the infection, in theory, and then they fill it with, I don't know what they fill it with. I don't know enough about it, and then they just cap it, kind of like a cavity would at the top, and then you're good, and the person walks out.
Essentially, you just have a hollow tooth.
Yeah, but it's filled with whatever.
Some sort of substance,
yeah. So essentially, your tooth is now just a shell.
But it's filled all the way down through your jawbone.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Okay.
It goes quite deep.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like a.
I mean, I've been lucky enough to not ever need a root canal.
Yeah.
I've heard they can be quite painful.
Like if this is your tooth, it goes way deep into your jawbone, right?
Okay.
So, and in theory, it's like, hey, root canals are great for you. They remove your pain, no problem. It's all done. And if you ask a standard dentist, I bet if you even Googled it, hey, is a root canal fine for you, or does it cause any harm? It would just be like, yeah, root canals are great. They remove pain and remove infection. Totally good for you. Which, if you go down the rabbit hole, absolutely not true. Because the problem is, you have your tooth still there, and it is now in open grounds again for bacteria and mold and all of these things.
And it's not like they're using ozone to clean it out.
Yeah, most dentists don't ozone it and completely disinfect it before it. So there's probably already bacteria still in it before they pack it. And guess what? You've removed all the nerves. So now you can't feel it. So if it becomes infected or has any problems again, you can't feel it. And guess what? There's no blood vessel. So now it will never heal.
Because the blood vessel is what's keeping all the nutrients there.
Blood and oxygen in your blood and everything in your blood is what heals you. So now you've removed it. So you'll never feel the pain. And it will never heal properly. And now you have this just cap of a tooth. And everyone does know that, hey, a root canal probably fails every 10 to 20 years because the tooth is just dying. You essentially have dead tissue in your mouth. But it's a hidden infection that no one knows about.
So what's the alternative, though?
So the alternative is you should pull it. You should pull your tooth.
Take the whole tooth.
Take the whole tooth.
Okay.
And I have seen... Well, I haven't seen. I've read and listened to multiple podcasts and books and everything where people have a root canal tooth and they pull it and their health symptoms immediately go away. Within 48 hours, they are a brand new person.
Wow. And even doing that, though, you want to do that with a biological dentist.
Yes.
They will do it the proper way with the
Yes.
ozone and the
Yes.
plasma, as opposed to just
Yes.
pulling the tooth, because then we have the same issue as with the wisdom teeth.
Right.
So the solution is they're going to pull your tooth. They're going to disinfect it properly with ozone because it goes deep into your tissue and gets rid of everything. And before, when they would give you a fake tooth or pull a tooth and give a fake tooth, I don't know what the right words for it is. They would do a titanium implant, which is putting metal into your mouth, which is again not good for you. And then it would take I think it takes months to heal around that, and then they just put a little cap. Then they cap it with whatever it is. Then they put the fake tooth over top of the titanium implant. Nowadays they can do ceramic implants, and they can do same day.
Wow.
So they will pull your root canal tooth or any tooth, and they will put a ceramic, which is a bioavailable material, and again, they'll essentially 3D print exactly what your old tooth looked like right there, same day. Now you don't have any metals in your mouth, you don't have any infection in your mouth.
Don't have a pole.
And the problem is, it still is, but it's ceramic.
Okay.
It's ceramic. It's not metal and not just filling in an infected hole that you don't realize you have in your jaw. So. Yeah.
Hopefully one day this stuff like this becomes more available.
Yes.
Both location and price-wise
Yeah.
for more people.
Yeah.
Because right now I'm sure that a lot of that isn't covered.
Yeah.
So it makes it more
Oh,
difficult.
of course not.
Yeah, because
And-
it's more, they look at it as elective.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
And
So,
for
you're
sure.
fighting against a whole system.
right.
There's anywhere from 15 to 25 million root canals done
Right.
in North America alone every single year. that's a booming business. And imagine if you have dentists that, oh yeah, I do a couple root canals a week. Be like, hey, some bad news. You're actually hurting everyone. The dentist would be like, I don't think so. I know what I'm doing. You don't know what you're talking about. You're not a dentist. You know what I mean? So there's this whole stigma and the system that is like, absolutely, that can't be true. That cannot be true. But if you're a dentist, and I'm sure if this got like a ton of views or a ton of people listening to it, I'm sure there would be dentists going, oh, this is crap. That's a lie. This person doesn't know what he's talking about. You know what I mean? It's like, go down the rabbit hole. Even if you're a dentist, I guarantee you're gonna figure it out. The dentist I went to in Toronto, he kind of was that same way. He's like, I went down the rabbit hole and I was like, wow, like there's a whole different world here that I didn't realize. And the crazy thing about being a biological dentist, if you're a modern dentist, a regular modern dentist, go become a biological dentist. People are looking for you, and you can charge way more. So you're going to be helping people, and you can charge way more at the moment. Maybe in, again, hopefully 20, 30, 40, 50 years, the science catches up.
Right.
But if you want a ceramic implant, like I just said, for a root canal, from where we live at the moment, you have to drive at least an hour and a half, 2 hours, and they're far and few between.
I think we're not in a very we're not in a very densely populated area. So once you start looking down south or in the States where there's a little bit more of a population, like
there might be more of these
Right.
available.
But even us living in southwestern Ontario, you think, oh, in Toronto there must be a ton. There's very few. There's very few. You have to search for them. Yeah, it's not just like, you can't just be like, oh, ceramic implant one day. It's like there might be 500 dentists. I bet a handful of them do it.
Yeah. But if you have the means and you know you've been suffering from certain ailments that you just can't find the reason for, this might be something worth looking into.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, let's give a quick summary. So cavitation is a
essentially fatty degenerative bone in your jawbone where your tooth used to be.
And you can get a cavitation surgery to make sure that old fatty bone is now cleaned and can heal properly.
Yeah.
And the metals in your mouth.
Yeah. You're going to want it. You want to get it removed from a biological dentist or a dentist which is trained under, I believe it is the IAOMT, International Academy of Oral Medicine and Technology. They have a directory. You're going to want to go there because these people are trained under the guides to remove mercury fillings safely. Don't go to a standard dentist unless they have this, because you can actually do more harm than good. So, and then they'll either do like a porcelain crown or they'll just do a biocompatibility material for where your filling was.
And then the other thing is the meridian chart. So maybe we can post a link to the a meridian chart to
it's just
look
something interesting to look at.
Your symptoms and if you've had wisdom teeth removal, see if it lines up with any of the pain you're having. It could be something to look into. Do you want to like maybe drop what book it was that got you started on this, or the Dr. Dom's information?
Definitely go give Dr. Dom a follow on Instagram. He also wrote a book called It's All in Your Mouth. And reading that book just blew my mind.
Life,
and then I think it's fun to share that Erryn, my husband, is very excited about starting his own health journey. He's been deep, like I said, in the woods here, working through a few things, and he's starting to launch his own podcast and healing journey over there. Do you want to talk a little bit about that? Or
I'm just this has become my new passion. I've just realized like the whole tooth thing, the jaw cavitation is just one small part.
Tip of the iceberg.
Tip of the iceberg of realizing like, holy smokes, everything in our world is broken. Our food system's broken. Our dental system is broken. It's just like, whoa, there's a whole world of alternatives.
And I think beyond that, you have some people in your personal life that have been struggling with things and have had some serious improvements. Yeah.
Myself, you, and multiple other friends and family. So I'm like, the world needs to know about this. I'm super passionate about this. And I want to share it with the world. So on social media like Instagram and YouTube Shorts and stuff, just making some content coming up. And then I want to
start. Is that on your personal page or
on my personal Instagram? It's going to be And then I'm just starting all of the other accounts, and I'm just started a new YouTube channel. I'm going to start doing podcasts and stuff like that. So that's my big goal for 2025 is to start.
Watch out for Erryn's podcast.
Yeah, right now
he already has a lot of followers, but I think that population is going to change.
Yeah. Well, or hopefully we'll have two audiences.
Two separate audiences.
I'll still continue the Nerf gun videos, but this is going to be its own separate thing. Right now it's called Esser Health, so I don't know if that'll change in the future, but yeah,
That's
it's
super
exciting. I'm super passionate about it, and yeah, it's a lot of fun. I love it.
Awesome.
Well, thanks so much for joining us and being our first guest. This was so fun.
This is so fun.
Thank you.
I was really happy, and thank you for sharing your journey with us because I've learned a lot, honestly.
Thank you for having me. This was great.
Yay.
Yeah. Producer Erryn out.
Oh, Mama Bear, I'm here to stay. With wisdom and warmth, let's light the way. Together we'll laugh, together we'll share. In this cozy space, it's love and care.